Charles and Dr. Howe. Relate to this.
Good evening, good evening, good evening to everybody. Hey there, Dr. Howe, I see you.
Hey, what's up? What's up, man? It's a pleasure to be here as always.
Well, listen, before we even get too far into it, we just want to let the people know once again, Dr. Howe is venturing across the nations. He is in one of those countries where it's normally sunny. I hope it is raining though, like it's here in the U.S.
Nope, 86 degrees, my friend.
86 degrees and it's sunny. So good to see you, Dr. Howe, once again on this show. Relate to this, where we touch a little bit on what do you want to call it? Relationships. We kind of ask questions about certain things, and I always say, Dr. Howe, when we get on this show, this particular one is my disclaimer is I'm no professional. I have no background in any of this, but I'm awesome at what I can do. I can take some green beans and make some sweet potato pies. So
Wow.
yeah, so we here today with that. But listen, man, listen, we have a special guest with us tonight. So as we begin this show tonight, we welcome one of probably I'm not even gonna call him my nemesis. But you know what? I'm gonna call him my nemesis. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. But he's my boy. We work together actually, and so we've been working together for some time. But some time ago, we had the opportunity, Dr. Howe, to spend some time on his show, and his show is Henry's House. That's media production. He's my boy. He's here today. My boy Alan Henry is in the house. That's Alan D. Great. Come on, man. What's happening?
How you doing, man? Nemesis. That's what we're gonna start off with.
Listen, because let me tell you something right now. Let me tell you what you're not gonna do. Let me say that right now, because see, I allowed you. So let me tell you. So we, at least listening audience, viewers, listen. We had an opportunity to spend some time on his show. Now he graciously invited us. I thought that I was there for a particular reason to be interviewed about a show that Dr. Howell and I do called Awkward Situation. But nah, it was a roast. I don't know if him and Dr. Howell knew each other before this and said, listen, he be getting everybody. We gonna get this sucker tonight. And they let me tell you something. I wish I had a clip. I'm gonna put together a clip. Half of the show was related to me. I ain't did nothing to nobody.
Hold on, I got to chime in real quick to
Go
correct
ahead, I'm
that.
listening.
I did mess with Dr. Howe as well. Okay, it was an equal opportunity show. Okay, so Dr. Howe got, he got me a couple of times. You got me a couple of times.
Okay.
We jumped on Dr. Howe. It
Okay.
wasn't all about you,
Okay.
but you kind of walked into a few things. So
Okay.
I don't know, man. The puppeteer thing.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know where to go with that.
Okay. I know you don't know where to go because see, let me tell you something. Let me tell you one thing I do know is you didn't even know Dr. Howe before the show, so you were kind of walking on eggshells when you trying to get him. But me, you went in so hard. I was like, well, listen, hey, listen, I'm on here trying to be your friend, and all of a sudden, I'm the punchline. But listen, that's all cool. We got Alan the Great. Alan, tell us a little bit about your show because we want folk. This is how it works. This is how this is supposed to work. This when some brothers can come together that's going down the going down the same track. Some get off at one stop and others get off at another, and then some folks just keep on going. We trying to bring everybody to where we trying to get. So, Alan, tell us a little bit about your show, real quick, and yeah, we want to hear about it, man.
First of all, I want to thank Jay Charles and Dr. Howe for having me on the show. I really appreciate this opportunity to, break bread and speak to you gentlemen. Got a lot of love for both of you gentlemen. Hope to have you back on the show. Past the Present
Definitely.
podcast is the actual show. Henry's House Media Production is the parent company to the podcast, and the podcast is basically a big pod jumbo, jambalaya. If you know what that is from New Orleans, all the people from New Orleans, it's a mixture of multiple different things. The best way to break it down, people, it's something for everybody. So if you come check out the show, I promise you, you won't be disappointed.
Awesome. Go ahead, YouTube, check him out. He is he's got listen, I've watched and listened to his show a few times, not as much as he would like me to. But because he feels like, you know, and I'm honest about this, Dr. Howe. Well, Alan, let me tell you something. Dr. Howe he doesn't think I'm really smart. Let me just say right now. But I be having some knowledge. You know what I mean? I be trying to put out some knowledge, but he never lets me talk. So this is my first time actually ever talking on the show besides the introduction. So I'm feeling good about myself. So
You're very knowledgeable about cell phones. You know, when I want to buy a new cell phone, I definitely call you first. You know what I mean? You know, iOS, you know, Android platform. Yeah, you
right,
got it.
right, right, right. That's awesome, awesome. So Ziggy, man, tell us,
Yes,
man,
sir.
how's Barbados? Where you at right now, man?
Oh, Barbados is good, man. I went to bed early last night. Got up early. My parents are a little older, and so my mom's hitting 90, my dad's hitting 89, and so I got up and I did some housework, and it was kind of funny because I have a suite to where I am, yeah, in their house, and so I snuck out the suite, went downstairs, and went outside, and I was doing yard work. My mother got up and she was looking out, and she saw a man's frame outside the yard. So she was like, "Well, it's not my husband, and it doesn't look like the guy who normally does the yard. So who is that?" It's about the size of my son, but he's still inside his room. So she got her husband to go out and check and see who it was, and sure enough, it was me. I was trying to, do some yard work without them knowing, because as soon as I went out there, my dad would have come out there, and I'm trying to help out.
Right.
So it was one of those situations. But he came out after a while, but I was out there for an hour before they even realized I had escaped out of the house, man.
What in
But
the world?
I'm enjoying time with my parents, so
That's cool.
it's fun, man.
That's good. That's good. That's good. But listen, let's go ahead and get to the meat of the issue tonight. Um, on our last episode that we did, Doc Howe, we discovered a lot of. I mean, it was really really good conversation, and we discovered a lot of things as it relates to being in a committed relationship. And I remember one of the questions I asked you is about the 5 questions you should ask yourself before getting into a committed relationship. Do you remember
Yeah.
that question I brought up? Before you say something, I'm curious to what Alan would say to that question, and I want to see if it kind of meets up to where we were talking about. Because when I posed the question to Dr. Howe, it was one of those like, ooh, that's gonna be a lot to unpackage, right?
Mhm.
Those 5 questions it's like 5 questions you should ask somebody else, but what's those 5 questions you ought to ask yourself before you get into a committed relationship? So let's start there. Let's open that package as we start the show tonight, Alan. What are 5 questions you should ask yourself before getting into a committed relationship? And you don't even have to give me the 5. If you got 3, I mean, 2 is the magic number. 5 is greater though. But what do you think?
What about 1.5?
Well, that could be your answer right there. Listen.
No, I'm just messing with you. I'll try to make it quick because, like Dr. Hal said, it's a lot to unpack when you ask that. The first
Mhm.
question I would say, are you ready to be honest with yourself?
Mm,
That'll be the first question. Are you ready to be completely honest with yourself? Second question, are you ready to be committed, truly committed and honest with someone else?
mm,
Third question I would ask is, where are you seeing yourself? Not where you see just you and your other person, where do you see yourself at? Where do you see yourself going? I think fourth question is, are you financially stable?
Mm.
Are you truly financially stable in your life? Fifth question, are you mentally stable? And that's a very loaded question. And why I say that is because a lot of times when we are growing up, and depending on your type of household your parents was, that could be an issue that plays on your mental when you go into a relationship. And it's something that I think all of us need to address before going into a relationship and having that conversation with ourselves.
Wow. I mean, listen, let's go.
Mm-mm-mm.
Let's Dr. Howe, let's dig into that one. I saw you when he said mentally, that mental stability. So I mean, what do you think about that, Dr. Howe? I mean, should I really this is gonna be a rhetorical question. Should I really be concerned about my own mental state when I'm trying to get
Oh
into a
yeah, yeah.
relationship
Oh
with
yeah.
somebody?
Definitely, because one thing that is going to get challenged in a relationship is your emotional state and then your mental state, and those two kind of work together. But if you look at what each other brings to the table, men tend to be a little bit more logical and straight lined where they attack things in relationship. Women tend to lead with their emotions. Women say things like, I feel like you don't understand me. I feel like you don't listen. I feel. Those are all emotional type things that women talk about in relationships. And so as a male, you have to bring your softness out. And a lot of men have been told from a young age, man up, walk it off, don't be emotional. And now you get with this woman, they're telling you, hey, I want to see you, I want you to be vulnerable, I want you to be transparent, I want you to talk to me. And so there's an emotional and there's a mental disconnect with men that they have to kind of process in a relationship. And sometimes if you can't get in touch with your feminine side or your softer side, you can have mental issues in a relationship because you're fighting within yourself to identify who you really are. Because and I believe I did a presentation one time, and I talked about I was upset and I was having a hard time at work, and my wife was trying to get me to get into a bubble bath. And I'm like, I'm a man. I'm not doing no bubbles, man. I'm not doing no bubble bath. And she kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And after a couple of weeks, she was like, "Hey, I'll put on the candles. We'll have the bubble bath, and we'll have the smell, and I'll even get one of your favorite CDs. We'll put it on." And I'm like, "Man, that's too girly for me." And I finally did it, and I'm in the bubble bath, and I'm like mad girl, and I'm like, and then I saw the first bubble, and I popped the first bubble, and I started popping, popping, popping. And then I realized, hey, this is fun. There's something to this. This is why women are always so happy and jovial after a bubble bath. So I do bubble baths now because I've gotten in touch with my feminine side. And so that whole mental thing, are you ready to listen to someone else? Are you ready to learn from someone else? Are you ready to try something new? And if you're not mentally stable within your own masculinity, you can see that as a threat, and it can cause so many ripples in your relationship that manifest themselves later down as something else bigger.
Yeah, can I ask
Wow.
a question
Yeah.
real quick? I'm sorry, Jay Charles.
Yeah,
Can I ask
go
you a
ahead.
question real quick, Dr. Howe? 'Cause I'm curious on this because I had many conversations with people. One of the things you mentioned was, the masculinity that a lot of men struggle with. From being
Hmm.
a child, we're taught, as you said, to act a certain way, to perform a certain way, to be a certain way. And when you get into a relationship, as you mentioned, your significant other wants you to soften up. Like you talked about the bubble bath. And we look at it, man, we don't do that. I come from a masculine household. How do you navigate those avenues and try to change and adjust into your relationship to be more softer with your wife? What type of advice would you give to the men who are probably watching the show with making those adjustments?
All right. Well, listen, that's a very good question, and I'm going to answer it by saying this: look at Kanye West. Look at what Puff Daddy's going through. Kanye picked a certain type of woman. Puffy picked a woman, and now she's telling on him. And Kanye had a woman that told on him. And so, what I'm saying is, in order for a man to be able to open up and express himself on a masculine and feminine level, you need to have a certain level of trust with that person. You need to feel like that person has your back. You need to feel like that person is not going to betray you in any shape, form, or fashion. And so the biggest ingredient, and Jose, we talked about this before, the biggest ingredient is who you choose. And then once you choose the right person, then you commit to the process. That means, like Chris Rock said, sometimes you sing and lead, and then other times you're on the tambourine. So men always talk about, yeah, I run this relationship, and women always say, yeah, I run this relationship. Well, are you willing to share the running of the relationship? Are you willing to learn in those areas where you're weak? There are areas that women are strong, there are areas that men are strong, and then there are areas that you might not think a man or a woman might be strong, but they are. So are you willing to learn and adjust and trust? If you can trust the person you're with, then you'll be more willing to learn what they have to say and learn what they have to offer and adjust and be flexible within the relationship. When you go in all hardcore and masculine and talk about this woman can't teach me anything, that's when your masculinity comes into jeopardy, because no man can be thugged out 24/7 at some point in time. I never cried at a movie till my daughter was born, and something about having a baby girl made me a little softer. But I had to be willing to embrace my feminine side. I had to be able to be willing to get in a bubble bath. That was kid stuff. That was woman stuff. But I had to learn to embrace it, and now you can't get me out of bubble baths, man.
But I also think too, it's this thing called generational curses. And I used to do a play, and in the play it was related to the father son father formula, and that father was an alcoholic, then his son became an alcoholic, and then that next child, also decided that he was going to break the generational curse. And also within that play was that aspect of men don't cry. And the dad says no, and he went down the line. No Johnson man cries. He says my grandfather didn't cry, my father didn't cry, I didn't cry, and you not gonna cry. And so when you're taught that certain way, that as you stated, that men don't cry, it'll go through every relationship. And so the woman that you with never sees the softer side of you. If something happens, lose a job, we immediately go crazy, but it's because we fall into that generational curse. And if we can get ourselves outside of that part, it's going to take that, any relationship we get in is going to take it a long way.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. I did shameless plug. I did an episode called Men Cry in the Dark. And also did an episode called Generational Curses. And the reason I did that was to try to highlight some of the issues that not only men have, but sometimes how these issues of us growing up start to interfere in our relationships, both professional and personal. We started this. We talked about Dr. Howe was talking about how he's in Barbados right now with his 90-year-old father, 89-year-old mother, and the fact they're still together is something that we strive for, is to have that type of long-term relationship, to grow old with somebody. And a lot of times, one of the issues I believe we don't is the generational curses. We grow up in households where mother and father stay together because of financial reasons or because they think it's good for the kids. And we grow up watching our mother and father fighting. We watch them battling. And we grow up thinking that's how we're supposed to communicate. This is how we're supposed to love. And not understanding that this is unhealthy. And that's why I started with the first question is, are you ready to be honest with yourself? And ended it with um, checking your mental health. And it's because if you're ready to be honest with yourself, you have to be honest with what type of relationships did you grow up seeing and how it's affecting your mental health in going into this relationship. If you're not ready, don't commit to somebody because it's not fair to them. It's not fair to you to commit to something that you're not truly ready for.
Mhm.
So
That is
let's
true.
talk
That is
let
true.
yeah. So let's continue along that same pattern wave there. That aspect, the mental health aspect, and in the African American community, and I mean, we say this all the time that African Americans don't, especially males, don't like counseling. They don't, or forget the word counseling, therapy. But I've seen more African Americans go to therapy or heard them talk about it than I've had and have seen in the last, few years. So it's like more and more of them. I don't know if it's because of COVID or some other things, but I do see more African Americans taking the opportunity to go into therapy. Dr. Howe, my question, from your professional opinion, does therapy really help or does it take a person further down?
It depends on look like everything else in life. There's no magic bullet.
Hmm.
I've been in sessions where the male or the female did not want to change. It's all about how adaptable are you, how willing are you to take the information and apply it to your life. It's kind of like being in a classroom. There are things that the therapist, the consultant, the counselor will tell you and that you have to buy into. And if you're willing to buy into it and buy into the process and commit to the growth and the development, then it will work. But if you think that you can bypass all of those roadblocks in your path and just get to the answer on the other side, then you're gravely mistaken. There are steps that people have to take in order to reach certain outcomes, and you don't learn it in school, and we don't learn it at home. They're, they're in books, they're in classes, and they are in marriage retreats and stuff like that. And so there are ways that you can get the information, but you have to be willing to put in the time and the energy. So if you're not willing to listen, if you're not willing to be malleable or flexible, if you're not willing to put the time in, it's not going to work. And the same thing with making money, the same thing with being good on your job. If you got to put the time and energy into it. And a lot of times people go into relationships for the wrong reasons. This person makes a lot of money. This person has a nice body. This person is a 10. Um, you go into it for the wrong reasons, and love is not enough to keep a relationship together. And I recently did a presentation called Love, no, Marriage is War.
Hmm.
And the reason why marriage is war is because you're fighting against your personality and your shortcomings, and you're fighting against that other person's personality and their shortcomings. And then the entity that we call a relationship, we're also fighting to keep that together. And
Hmm.
so there are three different fights taking place at the same time. And so it goes back to what Alan said, that you have to be mentally strong, because you don't just have to be stable for yourself. You have to be stable for your partner, yeah, and you have to be stable for the relationship. So if you're not willing to go into therapy, and you are a person who grew up in a dysfunctional home, And unfortunately, a lot of African Americans come from broken homes and dysfunctional homes. How do you present yourself to someone and you have all those deficits?
Hmm.
You have to get help. You have to be willing to change. You can't just say, take me to where I am, and you are horribly broken and you don't plan to improve yourself. That's not fair to the other person. So, yeah, coaching, counseling, and therapy works if you're willing to put the time and energy in. And most of us need it because we have not been taught how to do what is necessary to keep a relationship going.
Wow.
Can I jump in on that real quick?
Hmm.
Dr. Howe, I 100% agree with you. Like, it's just to put a little cherry, because Dr. Howe covered it perfectly. But it's like going to the doctors and the doctor giving you a prescription or giving you advice on change your diet, or you're going to, have heart problems or cholesterol issues, and then you go and leave the doctor's office and eat a cheeseburger. You ask yourself, does the doctor help? Wants the doctor help or hurt? It helps only if, like Dr. Howe said, you're actually going to participate and what the doctors trying to prescribe to you. And same thing with therapy. Yeah, you can go sit in front of therapists, marriage counselor, all that. But if you're not truly going to buy into it, I mean, how can it work? When you're just sitting there, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not listening. It's not going to work. And it's not the doctor's fault. And it's not saying therapy don't work. It means you're not willing to put the work in. I think that's something where people gotta be honest about.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
No. Yeah, yeah. No. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I believe that those who take the opportunity to go to therapy and they say that I'm not going to change, right? That I'm not the problem here. Most likely they, number one, are the problem, and that also constitutes in either an unhealthy relationship or possibly a toxic relationship, right?
Hmm.
So my question there is, what are, outside of what they just said in the counseling that I'm not going to change, what are some other signs of an unhealthy or a toxic relationship? What are some of those signs?
All right. Well, I'll start with that real fast.
Mhm.
First of all, narcissistic behaviors.
Mhm.
And so some of those behaviors look a little something like this. You never take accountability for your actions. The other person is always the reason why something went wrong, why something fell apart. You're always criticizing people. You're never positive. You're always judgmental. You're not willing to um, own up to your part. Everybody plays a part in a relationship, whether it's good or bad. You're either actively or passively involved in some part of the process. Because if you're saying, well, you know what, that's just the way he is, and I'm not going to say nothing, then you're a passive participant in the process, and so you are enabling that bad behavior. And that goes back to me what I said about choice. You have to first be willing to choose the right person. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes patience and diligence to actually pick the right person. You can't just pick the right person based on connection of physically, because anybody could be sexually attracted to someone else or compatible with someone else, but are you mentally, like Alan said, and are you emotionally, are you intellectually, are you financially, are you spiritually connected or attracted to that person? Or looking at it from another aspect, are you, is there physical, emotional, spiritual chemistry or financial chemistry involved in that process? So a lot of times we just look at the physical aspect, but those are the different things that we need to look at also. And so if a person is just telling you they like you for your body,
Hmm.
that's a sign that their relationship is going in the wrong direction. That's a sign that a person is just taking you on the surface level. And so that's a sign that that relationship has problems. What are some other toxic signs? People being secretive, people not wanting to be transparent, people not wanting to sleep in the same room, going to bed at separate times on a regular basis without having a reason, um, going on separate vacations. Those are all signs that your relationship is having problems. Not willing to share money, you know, going your separate ways on major events. Like if you coming home late on Valentine's Day and you know that you're supposed to come home early, that's a sign of some toxic behavior right there. Not coming home after work and not having an explanation and doing it on a regular basis. That's another sign of some toxic behavior. So if you look at it, anything that shoots up a red flag under normal circumstances are indicators of some level of toxicity. And to me, all relationships have some things that need to be worked out because everyone has different boundaries. But when that person that you express your concerns to, if they're not willing to change or to adapt to some of the boundaries that you set in place, especially if those boundaries are logical and they are things that regular people should readily get behind, then that's a sign of a toxic relationship. When people make you feel bad for having boundaries, for not wanting to be violated, not wanting to be abused, those are signs of toxic behavior.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Also, I was going to say to touch on what Dr. Howe said. If you're like dating somebody because of how they look, we all have a birthday. We all gonna get older. Eventually, all of our looks gonna change. If you dating somebody because of their finances, people's finances go up like up down like the stock market. One day you might be up one year, next year you might be down. What are you going to do then? What are you going to do at them down moments? You still going to be attracted to that person when they can't financially take care of you like before? What happens when they get older and their breasts start sagging, or the guys he starts having love handles, and that body doesn't look as good anymore? What happens? What happens in that
Mhm.
relationship? And that's the question people have to ask themselves. You have to have a spiritual, a mental connection to the person who you're with. So be careful of why you're choosing somebody. But also to answer your question, Jay Charles, I would say passive aggressiveness is a very toxic sign of toxic relationships. And what I mean about passive aggressiveness, and I will admit, I'm not proud of this, but it's something I had to work on in my relationship where I wasn't communicating. We would get into disagreements and I would shut down and wouldn't talk. And when I realized what I was doing was passive aggressive, I had to start working on that because that's not what I wanted to do and where I wanted to bring in my relationship. So I would shut down sometimes. And I realized that's toxic because that's making my wife feel isolated. That's not making her feel good. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that's a sign of toxic relationship, but also passive aggressiveness, excuse me, is also even in the bedroom, withholding sex as a way of punishing your husband or your wife. That's passive aggressive behavior. And a lot of time we get so hung up on actual physical aggression that we ignore passive aggressiveness in our relationships, which a lot of times hurts us even more than physical aggressiveness because now we're dealing with the mental component of it, and those mental scars take a lot longer to heal than those physical ones. So passive aggressiveness is
Mhm.
definitely something you need to watch out for as a toxic trait. Like I'm admitting to it not because I'm proud of it, but because I'm trying to bring awareness to it. That I'm glad it was brought to my attention to correct that in my relationship.
Yeah, no. Now, to piggyback on that question, can can a toxic relationship be so bad where neither individual know how toxic they are? You know what I mean? Like, can the relationship be at that point where you're dealing with each other, but it's almost like you eat food, Alan, and you don't throw it out. You just throw it on the side. You know what I mean? And then you eat something else. And you do it, and it begins to stink. Right? Does that relationship get so bad that those around you don't say that Johnny's toxic? They say y'all both y'all got high toxicity. You both are toxic. How do you, from the outside, Alan, how do you, as a friend, say to your friends, like, y'all either gonna die together or y'all need to just break this off, because it's not good. It's not good because it's spilling over into my relationship. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
it has ramifications far greater than just your household.
Hold on, Dr. Hal, didn't you mention Kanye West earlier?
Oh yeah.
I think, yeah, you mentioned
Yes,
Kanye West. Yeah.
yes.
You want to say toxic relationship where two people were toxic? Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. That's the definition of a toxic relationship where both of them were toxic. If you look at that relationship from outside, you can say, well, Kanye was they're both toxic. Trust me. And I don't even know them personally. And just from outside, you can see that that's a clear definition of two toxic people who just probably shouldn't be together. They probably shouldn't. But to answer your question, first thing you gotta do is you gotta get comfortable with the fact that it's gonna get real uncomfortable when you have that conversation with your friend.
Mm.
It's going to get real uncomfortable because he or she might not want to speak to you no more after you drop that level of honesty on them. They're not going to be
Mm.
dependent on where they are. They might not even be open to accepting that type of criticism, because if they're both toxic, they're most likely both narcissists. And Dr. Hal, Jay Charles, a narcissist doesn't see anything wrong with anything they do. Everybody else is to blame. So in that situation, the relationship might turn from being toxic between them two and become toxic between you two, because now you're the problem. Now you're the
Mhm.
cause of the issues, and you're starting to stir up trouble that didn't exist before. So that's a very complicated thing. But the best thing to do, honestly, is be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you're just going to have to just lay it out. This is what it is, and deal with the fall that comes after. I mean, that's honestly the best way to do it. But it's like Dr. Howe said with therapy. I mean, if they're not open for it, then they're not going to be accepted no matter what you say or how you say it. It's just not.
So then, Dr. Howe, my question here is this:
Yeah.
then, if this is the case, if I should be honest or be comfortable with being uncomfortable and tell them how it is, and yo, da 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 da, should I, no matter how close I am to Kanye, should I remove myself from that friendship? Or should I just continue being friends and just like whatever, knowing that that can spill over unintentionally into my own life, right? Secondhand smoke.
Yeah, let me put it to you this way. You gotta guard your inner circle. Your inner circle is supposed to help you get towards your lifelong goals. Your inner circle is supposed to uplift you, bring you energy, bring you peace, bring you knowledge. And if all they bring you is toxicity, you're gonna have to remove yourself eventually, especially if they're not willing to change. Another good example of a toxic relationship is Ike and Tina. That relationship spilled over into everything that they did. But Ike and Tina, they were both toxic. But have you ever seen those movies where a guy is beating on a woman and a guy jumps in to save the woman, and he's beating up the guy, and the woman jumps on the guy who's saving her and hurts him and almost kills him, and it's because toxic is attracted to toxic. You would think that she would be happy that you're saving her, but once she sees her significant other being beat down, something triggers in her. I'm going to be by myself if I don't jump in and save this person. And so she jumps in to save her toxic partner from the guy who was supposed to be the good Samaritan. And it's because the law of attraction. You attract what you attract. If you're toxic, you're gonna attract toxicity. And the honest and saddest truth is they have more in common with the toxic person than they do with you. So if you put if you make them choose between the good Samaritan and the toxic lover, they'll choose the toxic lover, and it's because that's what they are. That's what they focus on, and so you can try your best to tell them they're both toxic. I think deep down inside they know, but they rather blame you for getting into their business than to stare at the fact that they have some internal problems that they need to deal with. It's easier to blame an outsider than to for me to blame myself and my partner to blame herself. And that's the problem. And that's why you don't want to be subjected to a friendship like that, because eventually you negative far outweighs the the attractiveness than positivity. When a whole room is negative, everyone gets even more negative. Positive does not outweigh more than negative. People are drawn to negative. That's just human nature. And so you have to pull yourself out of that environment if you want to save your soul or because you will change and not even know it. The changes will be so small that over a period of time you realize, yo, I would not have done that a year ago. Man, I don't even know myself anymore. So you have to be very careful.
Yeah, like Jay Charles, like I feel like you are in a toxic relationship with me, and it's making me feel very uncomfortable and very uneasy. I think we need to go see counseling so we can fix our issues. I feel like it's mostly you and not me, but
That's the absolute truth. I listen, I have no problem with telling the exact truth. It's definitely me. It's definitely me. And I think instead of going to counseling, we just need to let it go.
you know
I
what?
think
This
we
is
just
the
need
first time I agree. I'm gonna write your number right now. Hold on.
right. Just let it go. Just let it go. Um so with all of that being said around relationship, the toxicness in the relationship, the surroundings that I was in as a child growing up, and from a male perspective, and not getting that softer side. All of this is themed around pretty much the same thing, and we said every show, Dr. Howe, is that you have to love yourself before you can express love to somebody else. I mean that's like a golden saying. That's one of those sayings that everybody says to people, like, you gotta love yourself first before loving somebody else. Or they'll say, listen, from a woman's perspective, I don't need no man. I love myself. And so you say this, but at what point does saying I love myself and I don't need nobody else, at what point, though it sounds great, at what point does even that become toxic?
When you're not willing to learn what yourself is. See, loving yourself is a catch all phrase that people say when people are kicking you to the curb and nobody's in your corner and you're out there in the cold, naked and afraid. And you will say, it's just me and God. I love myself. But have you sat in the closet crying and searching through your soul to see what it is that people keep running from? When you look back at your relationships and you see that they all end the same way, with people saying you are X, you are Y, you are Z. At what point do you say they don't know each other and they're all coming up with the same description of me? I got to check myself to see what it is they're seeing, because I never noticed it before. But if everyone is saying it, there has to be some validity and truth to it. So let me see who I am. Let me be transparent with myself. Let me see who I am. And let me, after that, address those situations. Now, I will love myself despite my weaknesses, but I'm holding myself accountable for change. That's when it gets toxic, when you're not willing to change what people are pointing out, when you're not willing to address what the elephant is that's in the room.
Thank you for saying
So
that.
you're not willing to address it. You're not willing to change. You're just sitting there waiting for God to change you. Or you're sitting there talking about, I just want somebody to love me for me. Suppose the you that you're giving to people and exposing to people is toxic. Do you expect somebody to love you for you and you are a horrible person? You know, are you at least willing to listen to what people are saying and adjust and show people that you're willing to change some, those negative things about you? Everybody has at least one gift, but everyone has at least one major problem. So are you willing to address that major problem? Are you willing to get help? Or are you just picking friends who say, hey girl, if he don't love you because of X, then kick him to the curb, and you kicking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dudes to the curb because they all can't stand X. When are you gonna change X and stop saying all men are dogs? And if you are a dude who girls keep breaking up with because of X, when are you gonna change X, whatever X might be, so that you can attract the right woman for you, attract a woman that can last a lifetime, attract a woman that would accept you for who you are? So love yourself, but you got to be honest with yourself. You got to be transparent with yourself to make sure that you identify what is wrong with you and fix it.
Look like you gonna say something, Alan.
Yeah, I was gonna say thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that, Dr. Howe. Seriously, a lot of people need to hear that. It needs to be said. So thank you.
I
Thank you.
didn't need for you to co-sign on that, Alan. I thought you was gonna come with something
No, no, no.
profound. You
I
had
mean,
no
I,
profound statement to
no,
that. This,
I,
thank you,
I,
thank you, thank you, Dr. Howe. Oh, Dr. Howe, you're the greatest. Oh
no,
my
I
gosh.
got. Oh,
Matter
hold
of
on. I
fact, you know
got
what? You
something.
know,
I got
you and
something to
Dr.
say.
Howe, you
Hold on. I got. Oh, look. You see what happened when you a bully?
He's
See what I'm
gone.
talking about? Look, now he cut out. Didn't pay his Wi-Fi bill. See,
I tell
didn't pay
you,
your
man.
Wi-Fi bill. That's what
Man.
you see that
Toxic.
toxic
Hey,
relationship
that's
at.
toxic masculinity
At
right
its
there.
finest.
I
But
don't put you and Dr. Howe next to each other. You
hold
know what I
on.
mean? You
Hold on.
know.
Before you interrupted, I was going to say something a little more profound and expand on why I said thank you. But see, that the toxic relationship is displaying right now where somebody's holding feelings on the last show we did. Let me start by saying I'm sorry, Jay Strauss, if I hurt your feelings. I'm going to give you a hug next time I see you. All right. As soon as I see you, I'm gonna walk up to you and give you a hug. Okay.
So
No, but
go ahead.
why I said thank you though, Doctor How is because one of the things people always telling you is love yourself. When you ask people questions about relationships, communicate. All these little empty phrases, but nobody follows it up with detailed information like Dr. Howe just did. And that's why I said thank you,
Mhm.
because I'll ask people like, I've been married 50 years. Okay, what's the key to a long marriage? Communication. Okay. You gave me a one-word answer. I was looking for something a little more, deeper. Explain, because what does that mean? What does communication mean?
That means hollering at each other.
Exactly. So I'll give you an example. Listen, listen. So this is what I'm saying. Like, you people say little phrases and stuff to you, or say, I don't need it, you don't need a man, or love yourself. What does that mean, love yourself? Well, partial, it means get to know who you are. What do you love about yourself? What do you like to eat? Because a lot of times
Mhm.
you're in relationships, and all three of us are married, and we are married for a while. So you start to forget what you like to eat, because if you got kids, you
Mhm.
start to try to appease the kids, try to appease your wife. Before you know it, you forget little things about what you love. What type of stuff you like to watch
Mhm.
on TV. I got a 2-year-old daughter. She owned every TV in my house. And a lot of times she watches TV while she watching the tablet. And if I try to turn channel, I might get stabbed. So I'm in a toxic relationship right there. But No, but the point is that a lot of times when we tell people to love themselves, what are you telling them to love? And then it goes back to honesty. Like, dude, like you love what about yourself? The fact that you just lost, this is your 10th boyfriend or your 10th girlfriend that broke up with you? You supposed to love that about yourself? No, you need to correct that. So, these empty phrases and stuff needs a little bit more meat to it. And that's why I say thank you, Dr. Howe, because he gave the meat that a lot of people don't give when they give advice. They just give us one word zingers and thinking we're supposed to run with that and know what it means. A lot of people don't know what it
Yeah,
means when you
yeah.
tell them to communicate or to love themselves. And we need explanation so that we can get better in our relationship. So, yeah, Jay Trials, that's the profound thing I was trying to say. Okay, I
Oh
was,
no, I have no problem. And matter of
you
fact,
know,
it was so profound that the follow up show, we're gonna dig into something. I mean, you really did say it, Alan. To be serious, you really did say it just now. Is that we're accustomed to the one word zingers. We're so accustomed to it that growing up, those were what we heard. So when we asked use the term, the hood term, when we asked the dope man on the corner how you get that car, he said hard work. Okay. Then we asked, we asked the man at the corner store how he started his business, and he said hard work. And so we hear these one zingers, but we don't know what that really means. Give me some meat. So the dope dealer, tell me how you got what you got. Break it down. You know what I mean? You went to school for hard knocks and you went da 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 da. The man on the corner with the store, what did you do? Listen, I went to school for business. I created this. The man that's doing real estate, that got all these buildings, what did you do? So growing up, we're used to hearing one line zingers. So when we become adults, when we come the person that we want to be like, when we become that person, we've been hearing just one liners. So how do I make my relationship great? Communicate. Well, okay, go sit down. What does that really mean?
Shut up.
Shut up, get out my face. I don't like you no more. So we're so used to that, and it causes the rifts that we have. And I use this same thing in every show, Alan. In every relationship we have, whether it is wife, girlfriend, brother, sister, friends at work, co-workers, in all our relationships, they all suffer because of the one word zingers. How do I become a better employee? This is to the boss. How do I become a better employee? Come to work.
yeah, work hard, do your job.
Work harder. Like, okay, what? I'm coming here for 8 hours. I don't even take a break, and you said work harder. You know what I mean? And so that's something we need to kind of on a different day unpackage that whole. We're gonna call it the
Yeah.
one line zingers, one word zingers, and how it's impacting our Matter of fact, I already sent it in the mail, Alan. I've already mailed it to myself. I'm writing a book. So I already done stole that. That's in the mail.
Uh-oh. Well, can I say something real quick, Jay Charles?
Yeah.
Because you keep saying I give Dr. Howe
Oh
all
yeah,
the
yeah,
shout outs
definitely.
and stuff. So just to touch on that real quick, and I'll be real brief.
Mhm.
So when I first started doing my podcast and stuff, I would talk to other people, and I was getting connected with people who was doing this a lot longer than me. And similar to we talked about the one word zingers, I would get a lot of those one word zingers on how to get things started, what to do. Like I would get the quick answer. Giving a shout out because I tease Jay Charles all the time because you gotta get him if you know him before he gets you. But all seriousness though, one of the few people I can say that really gave me who sat down on his personal time away from his kids to get on the phone with me after hours, like, yo, this is what you gotta do. This is what you need. This is how this works. Helping me figure out stuff. Telling me, yo, this is the program I'm using. This is what I'm using is Jay Charles. And that's all seriousness. This man literally would call me on the phone. We'll be on the phone for an hour when I first started. Like, yo, this is the program I'm using. Go get that program. All right, you got it. Now I'm gonna walk you through it on the phone, how it works. When you get a green screen, okay, you need this, you need that. He walked me through it, breaking it down the difference between a still photo and video. We don't get that a lot. And we talk about one word zingers. I just wanted to give that out because I don't kiss up, but I give credit to where it's due. And Jay Charles, all seriousness, a lot of respect to you, dude, because you have been a real good friend with helping out with anything I need. And always, you could be stingy with the information you got, but you share every time you learn something. When I see you, like, yo, Alan, I'm doing this, I'm using this now. Check this out. I'm sending you a link right now. Check this out. So seriously, thank you for all that you do as well. But I'm going to continue to crack jokes on you because
Absolutely.
you already know when I see you, you're going to try to get me before I get you.
Absolutely. No. I mean, you're listen, man, all jokes aside, Alan, you are absolutely right. If you don't get me first, it's gonna be too late. it's gonna be too late for this. But listen, let me tell you, gentlemen, Alan the Great, Dr. Siegfried Howe. Listen, man, this show has been awesome. Alan, we thank you. We thank you for listen, we can't thank you. I mean, we thank you. Seriously. I mean, my boy, listen, I'm gonna tell you, I ain't trying to be funny. This is true statement. And this is as true as it's gonna get on this show tonight. Just tonight. My boy is across the water. If he was here right now, I'm gonna tell you the truth. And he'll tell you if I'm lying. If he was here right now, he would be writing you a check for 50 cents, man. Because listen, you have brought the Thunder into
wire
this
transfer.
storm. You brought it tonight with us, man. We really appreciate you. We appreciate your input that you brought into the show tonight and collab with us on this. And you gonna be right back. I'm no jokes on that. You coming right back. So put us in your schedule. You will be back. Go ahead, Doc.
Hold on 1 second. I just wanted to say Alan did not get the questions ahead of time because Jose is stingy with those questions. And so none of us got those questions ahead of
Absolutely
time.
not.
So he kept up with this. And, he put in the time, he put in the energy. He gave us some really good answers. He gave us some stuff to think about, to ponder on. And he knows the stuff about relationships. But like he said, all three of us have been in our relationships for a long time. We've struggled, we've bumped up against walls, we've been hurt, and we've hurt also, but we've learned how to communicate and we learned how to make our relationships work. And for those out there who know me, hard work, determination, and communication is what keeps a relationship together. Those are your one-line singers.
Go get the book. Go get the book. Go get the book. So we appreciate you guys being with us tonight. And as I always ask Dr. Howe is, can you relate to this? We'll see you all next time.
Relate to this. With Jay Charles and Dr. Howe.